Hi, we're not on the range today. We're at one of our training facilities, so hopefully you won't have to put up with any gunfire in the background. Recently, some people have contacted me asking about CZ handguns. Well, one of the crew just bought this CZ97BD. No, not SBD, just BD. It's caliber 45 ACP, we'll shoot it, we'll evaluate it, but for comparison, we'll shoot it alongside the Glock Model 21 in caliber 45 ACP, a Colt Government model in caliber 45 ACP, and a little bit more obscure model, the Colt Double Eagle in caliber 45 ACP. Now let's start with a close-up of how the CZ97BD works. The CZ97BD is a conventional double-to-single action autoloader that has a 10-shot double-stack magazine. When you put a round in the chamber, there's a loaded chamber indicator that's easy to see and very easy to feel. You can see that the hammer's cocked and then you hit your decock lever. Unlike some handguns that require pushing that back up, this one just springs back up on its own, so it's ready to fire. Your first shot is double action, so a long trigger pull. Then your hammer's cocked, and subsequent shots are a relatively short trigger pull. However, like most double action autos, there's a lot of slop in the trigger. Remember, this is still loaded. There's a lot of slop in this trigger, and when you take the slop out, then there's some creep. Then after you're done shooting, hit the decock lever, and the hammer will drop back to half cock. Now we're going to do something a little bit different today. Some handguns work well for some people when they've had a lot of practice. There's a real learning curve associated with them. Some handguns will work well for a lot of people right out of the box with very little practice. Where will the CZ97BD fall on that scale? Well, I've got two targets set up at 10 yards, and Greg is going to take the CZ97, which is not his, and it's a gun that he has never fired before, and he'll shoot the target on your right with that, and then he'll shoot the target on the left with a Glock Model 21 in caliber 45 ACP, another handgun that he's never fired before, and let's see how the groups compare. Now here's the group, and you can tell that Greg is one of my crew because he's got a really good group and a couple of flyers. But remember, he's aiming at the center of the target. So is it that the sights are off, or at least just not zeroed for him? Or is it because he's not accustomed to all the creep in that trigger? Now if we look at the group he got with the Glock, it's basically the same story. Fairly good group with a flyer. But again, he's aiming at the center of the target. So are the sights off, or at least not zeroed for him? Or is he just not working really well with the Glock trigger? So what we'll do is we'll put up another target, and Greg will shoot from 10 yards with the Colt Government model caliber 45 ACP, which is his preferred handgun, and let's see if there's any difference. And now we see that Greg's group is centered. So were the sights off on the CZ, or is it just that he's not accustomed to that creepy trigger? Well, we'll put up a new target. I'll shoot from 10 yards with the CZ and the Glock, both of which I have fired before at least a little bit, and see how I do with them. Now I'll shoot the target on the right with the CZ and the target on the left with the Glock. And I've fired both of these handguns at least a little bit. Now let's take a look at the targets. So we see that my group of the CZ is a little bit higher on paper than Greg's was, and that could be because I look at the sights a little bit differently, and more so probably because I'm more accustomed to dealing with handguns that have a lot of creep in the trigger. But once you learn to work with that creep a little bit, the CZ is capable of some really good groups. Now by contrast, you look over here at the Glock group, Greg and I were both a little bit to the left. Although my group is a little higher on paper than his is, again, that has to do with I look at the sights a little bit differently, and I'm more accustomed to the trigger pull. Now the Glock I'm firing is mine, and I've owned it for a while, and I've shot it a little bit, but even at that, the group is fairly good, but not as good as the group I got with the CZ, which I've never fired before today. When shooting double to single action autoloaders, a very important thing is doing a two-shot drill, because your trigger pull from your first shot to your second shot can be very different. So I've got two targets set up at 7 yards. I'm going to shoot the target on your left with this Colt Double Eagle. Then we'll do the same drill on the target on the right with the CZ and see how they compare. One of the things I noticed right off the top is it's difficult for me to hit the decock lever on this Double Eagle. Now let's try the CZ. The Colt Double Eagle originally came with 8-shot single stack magazines. Today I was using 7-shot mags. But even though it has an 8-shot single stack magazine, the CZ with its 10-shot double stack magazine, I have to say it fits my hand better. But let's see how well I can shoot it in a 2-shot drill. Let's take a closer look at the targets. So with the Double Eagle, which is also not my gun, we see the group is fairly well centered, and it's a mediocre group. Now with the CZ, the group is a little high, and we expected it to be, but I think it's a little bit better group, and I found I could find the decock lever on the CZ a whole lot easier than I could on the Double Eagle. And the CZ, even though I bobbled getting the magazine out of my pocket, the magazine change seemed to be quite a bit easier. Now I mentioned magazine changes. Let's see how the CZ97 stacks up against our other handguns in terms of speed reloads, and I'll start with the Colt Government model. Let's try another handgun. And now our Colt Double Eagle. Now let's try another gun. And now our Glock Model 21. And now let's see how our CZ compares. And now our CZ97. And no, that test was not fair at all, because I've worked with those other firearms a lot more than I've worked with this one. So take that into account. Since Chuck is the one that actually owns this pistol, we'll have him shoot it from 10 yards, and we'll see how the size and location of the group compare to the results Greg and I got. But remember, he's only had it for a couple of days, so he hasn't really shot it much more than I have. So as where Greg hit a little bit low and I hit a little bit high, it looks like Chuck's hitting pretty much in the center. Good thing that it's his pistol. And this shows us that not everybody looks at the sights the same way, and you really do have to zero your firearm for you. A couple more things to add. The CZ97 has a capacity of 10+1, which is more than 7+1. But is it enough more to matter? I'm going to say not very often, but occasionally yes. But with a capacity of 10+1 compared to the Glock's capacity of 13+1, 13+1 is certainly more. But when you get up that far, you get into the area of diminishing returns. Now is that enough more to matter? I've given the long version of that speech many times, so today the very short version is, it's going to matter very rarely. And it's certainly not going to be as important as your ability to operate the firearm correctly, operate it safely, hit what you're shooting at. And based on the results of today, it looks like with a little bit of practice, most shooters will be able to hit what they're shooting at with the CZ. Now, as far as the size of the grip, obviously the one that fits my hand the best is the Colt Government model. The CZ with its double-stack magazine is a little bit bigger. I have an average to above average sized hand, and it fits me okay, but if you have really small hands, it might not be the right gun for you. But it certainly fits my hand a whole lot better than the very large grip on the Glock. Now, as far as the reliability of the CZ, by now we've got a couple of hundred rounds through it, and the number of malfunctions we've had has been 0. So it scores really well there. As far as disassembly and reassembly, I'm not going to go into that because it would be boring, and because the disassembly and reassembly is really conventional and easily done. So based on what we know about the CZ so far, everything about it looks positive. Is it the right gun for me? Maybe. Is it the right gun for you? You be the judge. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the CZ97 video.